Thank you. We have an amendment this evening for the agenda. In new business, item 2, Police Department will be postponed to the next meeting. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The public participation policy applies to all selectmen meetings. A copy of it is on the back of each agenda, posted in this meeting room and on our website. The Alton Town Clerk Office, Collector's Office will be closed Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. The staff will be attending the Town Clerk's Annual Spring Workshop. Public input on agenda items only. Seeing none. Oh, sorry.
Good evening, gentlemen. Name is Reuben Wentworth. I'm here to talk to you about your agenda item, Loon Cove. Loon Cove culvert was replaced in 1968. The road was opened in 1971, the new 11. State of New Hampshire put 2 culverts in, one that expands across Route 11, one that expands across Loon Cove. In those years, I've lived there since 1971. Never in my life. And I've seen the water come up. So the rain we had in the last week and a half was not a 100-year rain, wasn't a 500-year rain, as I've been told, or a 1,000-year rain. It's a typical rain, especially from a mountain runoff. I had asked a few years ago when this was done, after it was completed, that the culverts be cut down and sloped into the banking. That fell on deaf ears. So last year, what happened? It blew out the sides of the culvert because there was nothing there to support it when the top came off. Again, all we did was put rocks back on it. The rocks originally blew out in the Loon Cove. Nice sandbar that's been there for years. Second time, the boulders have gone back out in the Loon Cove. If I lived on Loon Cove and had lakefront property being taxed on, I'd be a little upset because of all the debris that's gone out there now. I've seen that brook and that pond in front of my house, because that's where it goes down through. Go up to within a foot of the state culvert going across the state road. At no time in the last 2 rains, last fall and this spring, it was up to about 3 foot of it. So the road always held it, it's never washed out. And all the years the town had ownership of it, it never washed out on the sides. I believe your contractor also disturbed that slope when they put that bridge in because of the way it washed out on both sides. And for the contractor last fall to say, well, I can pin it, that will hold it. Well, I think you gentlemen found out it didn't because it folded right up. So I hope that you're going to take it out and at least on the west side of Loon Cove, you're going to put a head wall in, a concrete head wall in to receive that water and keep that from eroding into Loon Cove. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, appointments, no appointments this evening. We'll go right to new business. Cemetery tree removal.
Good evening.
Thank you.
I have a memo before you in regards to removal of 2 oak trees on the southerly side of Old Riverside Cemetery. The memo itself outlines relative to the reason that was brought before before my department for review due to the new ownership of the property adjacent to and abutting that. It appears based upon review of the boundary pins that both trees are in fact on the town's property. Although they probably when they started in their youth, they were and they continue to grow and they now have encroached the property line. And the root system is now encroached upon the small garage that's there as well. So I bring it before the board relative to the removal of those 2 trees. There's no doubt that they do hinder our maintenance operations at the cemetery as well. Not a fan of trees in cemeteries unless they're, in a small park area. But they do shed limbs and they do come down and they are in fact potential hazards to the headstones. That way, the root system appears to be growing more so now as the trees continue to get larger and larger. But I have obtained 2 prices. They are crane prices to remove those trees, and I have a recommendation. You are the trustees of the cemetery, so the funds to take care of that would come out of perpetual care.
Okay. And you have, it was just two estimates on that, one from Arbortech,
One from Arbortech and then Northeast.
Northeast. And the stumps, it looks like the stumps would just be cut flat
Correct. At this time,
at this time, and then later on,
if in fact,
dig those out.
yeah, they're right up, the fence is right up pretty close to them. The fence actually goes around them, so.
They're just gonna grind the stumps flat.
No, they'd be cut flat.
They'll be cut flat.
We would have to check with our insurance carrier to see if in fact the trees were to remain there and continue to grow, whether or not we'd be subject to the liability for that. I'm not quite sure. We'd have to consult with our insurance carrier.
I think I said the liability for what? I'm sorry.
Just for further damage to the
Oh,
garage.
Okay.
Any other question?
Move that we authorize Public Works Director to engage with Arbortech. Removal of 2 trees on the south side of Old Riverside Cemetery in accordance with Arbortech's quotation, $3,800.
We have a second.
Second it.
Any more for discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, moving to Gilman Library, resignation appointment.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes.
you'll see in there.
Mhm.
That in your packets, there was a letter of resignation from Karen Patel. From the Library Board of Trust, our Secretary for the Library Board of Trustees. Followed by that is a request letter from the Gilman Library Board of Trustees with the vacancy. Looking to fill that vacancy with Christine Simone of Alton, New Hampshire.
Okay,
And this is supported by the Board of Trustees. I think more of this is I believe that that's a decision that the trustees make, but obviously would like the Board of Selectmen support in the matter as well.
and Christine is familiarized with the process and everything
Yes.
of what they've been doing.
Mhm.
Okay, what's the wishes of the board?
Do we have to make a motion to? Okay,
Yes,
I make a motion that we hire Christine
Appoint.
Christine Simone of Alton to take over for the letter of resignation we just had.
I second.
okay, any further discussion?
This is a volunteer position, right?
Yes, it is. It's an appointment to their board, not just a correction on the wording is not, wouldn't be technically be a hire, just an appointment to the board for the secretary vacancy of the Board of Trustees.
Until we vote again, until we have a town election on it, right?
Right.
No, I don't
Like
believe
this.
I don't believe this is an elected
Okay.
position. Because this is the secretarial position. I don't think they're specifying the secretarial position, but
2024.
It's an appointed.
yeah, I think you'd be corrected that even though it's the secretarial position, it's still a member of the Board of Trustees. So that vacancy would be sorted out at the next
Until
election,
2024.
till the next election term.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Old business, Loon Cove Road discussion.
We brought back up.
After you, gentlemen.
Had to bring my reinforcements here because
The muscle.
the muscle, so to speak, for this.
For the record,
Project.
just announce your names, just for the record.
Jack Housel, Alton, DPW foreman for the highway garage.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think the board, I sent up earlier today, just to give the board members an update relative to the Loon Cove situation. Some of the board members were not here when the board approved this contract for a design build and the concept for that, which was voted unanimously by the Board of Selectmen in 2021. I believe it was in May of that date when that was approved by the Board of Selectmen relative to the design and the concept. This design, as it's outlined in the memo, there is not a new design. This is a design that has occurred in multiple locations and multiple jurisdictions by the contractor. The remaining bottom part of the pipe, which was left in ground in place undisturbed, was in fact pinned to the footing so that it would stay in place as it continued to deteriorate and rot, basically. So the soil around the pipe itself was only disturbed to about 12 inches below the actual cut location, was not disturbed below that location to stay out of jurisdictional wetlands and to avoid any DES permitting for that purpose. And it was then filled on top of that with erosion stone. So with the idea and concept is for to increase the hydraulic capacity of that waterway, so it would increase by approximately 1/3. If in fact that was to be filled in that cove area to the point where it was up high. And if any of you have been up there and reviewed that cove area, certainly the water came through that culvert pipe under Route 11 at pretty good charge of water. Mr. Wentworth has indicated he's seen it pretty high there. From what I understand, it has never overtopped either road in that location, and that was what was provided to the contractor when he did this project. So one would ask, why would that metal pipe in fact float? And we really don't have a huge answer to that, other than, we know that water weighs 8 pounds per gallon. And when you have approximately 4 to 5 feet of water in that pipe, if not 6 feet of water in that pipe, then it really shouldn't float. But the velocity of the water, because that water does not get high enough in that small pond area so that it would come up and flood. Certainly doesn't flood up into that, didn't flood up into that yard. That's the adjacent properties in that situation there. And the velocity of the water, we believe, probably got up underneath that pipe on the inlet side, got up underneath the pipe, and that's what actually eroded underneath the pipe. And then by it eroding underneath the pipe and lifting the pipe, it then eroded the sides by a vortex of water in doing that. Kind of like when you flush your toilet, to be perfectly honest with you, that's pretty much what happened. That's what our belief is. We all came in after both situations that happened on December 23rd and also on May 1st when we had the large rain events. And I've outlined that in there. So one might say, how are we going to fix this situation? So we have in fact met with the contractor and consulted with the contractor out there, understanding that the contractor, once again, is beyond any type of a warranty period in that situation there, but he has been very, very helpful in trying to work with us and do things at no cost and or at only his cost of what it takes to do any steps to help mitigate the situation. So we've identified first and foremost that we need to remove the actual pipe that's actually there now because it has become completely unbedded within the bed. In that situation there. So that will cause us to cut the rods that tie back to the foundation and then make series of cuts within the pipe itself and then remove it piece by piece out from the waterway and get it out of the channel itself. And then we will work to then fortify the stream bed, so to speak, or to fortify the footers of the actual bridge itself. The footers of that bridge were, of course, set back quite some distance, although once again, that was all virgin soil that was around that metal pipe, which was a sand soil, not rocks, not boulders by any means. It was just clean, virtually clean sand that was around that pipe initially. We, after the December storm, tried to do what we could without lifting the bridge deck off, without doing anything else, and put stone in there by hand to try to protect that footer that was actually there. So, and of course, with this storm here, we had the same situation occur where we ended up having another vortex of water that caused that to happen. This vortex of water, understandably, didn't come in a 12-hour period. It did not come in a 24-hour period. It came in a 2-hour period. And it rained hard. And, whether we call them 100-year storms, 50-year storms, 1,000-year storms, there's a lot of water came through that pipe.
So the way you're gonna fix this is Jack and his team can handle this, no problem, right? They can cut it out and remove it in sections. I have the utmost confidence in Jack being able to do it.
We're going to give it our college try to make
The
sure.
issue I have is with the cutting, Nick. I've already ordered 4 blades for my saws to line up. You know what I mean? Get my stuff cut, see what I can do for cutting.
Cutting, yeah.
Cut it up under the bridge, and then I'm gonna have to pull it out, fold it, cut it.
Cut.
Pull it, fold, just like that.
Just keep pulling it, man.
We have everything needed to do that. Jack,
Yes. The only thing we might not have is Mikey might have to stop by with his big excavator to help me.
push it.
That might be the only
Right.
issue that I see right now.
Did I read correctly that you doing the bridge deck in order to get at this or not?
That would be the last resort for us to do that. It can be done. It does come with an expense to do so in order to do that. And we're not 100%. We're going to try to take that pipe out without doing that. Because what happens is if we pull that bridge deck and I think it was, we counted what, 6 or 7 panels?
There's 6 panels there.
6 panels of slabs of concrete that weigh multiple tons each. I think they're 21 tons a piece, they're huge. So you pick them up with a crane, and with that crane, then you have to stack them and crib them. And then you have to have enough space to be able to then get that pipe out if you're going to try to take it out as one piece
And get the crane out.
and get the crane out
Now we got the slabs in there.
and be able to get the people out.
What's the time frame in you being able to do this?
It's gonna take time.
It's gonna, yeah.
It's gonna take
It's
time.
not going to happen overnight. We've been patching nonstop. I'll be honest with you, we've been patching roads and fixing roads ever since December
Since-
23rd, in between plow and snow.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff is damaged in this town. I mean, I gave the emergency management an estimate of well over 300 or close to $300,000. And that didn't include anything with taking bridge decks off and dealing with that kind of stuff. So, there is a lot of work to be done in this town with a highway department workforce that's down 25%. So within 2 weeks, I will have 3 vacant CDL positions within the highway department and have had no people knocking at the door to take those positions. So once again, I'm doing it with a limited workforce
Mhm.
and once again, trying to still be able to take care of everything else in town. So can I tell you when, the big thing that we want to do first of all is get that culvert out of there.
That was just my
And
question.
then fortify by, we have two different methods that we're looking at as far as bringing in basically refrigerator sized rock and being
That's what I
able
was
to
gonna
move
ask.
them into place.
So there's no thought of going with concrete on either side, like a bunker on either side to stabilize the banking? On either side, you're gonna use boulders?
Right now, we're looking
There is
at,
boulders there now.
no, there's no boulders there.
There's a few,
There's only some rocks that are at the very end of
Right.
of the inlet.
Yep.
And outlet.
which I saw them. That's why I'm saying.
There was never any rocks whatsoever beneath that bridge.
Okay,
None whatsoever.
that's all concrete.
No, all there is concrete. There's
Just,
concrete abutments that actually hold the bridge up.
that's it.
The metal
Okay.
pipe, the metal pipe was just, it was constructed like any other culvert pipe that was be put in by anybody,
Mhm.
is they backfilled it with sand. When they install that, when the state of New Hampshire installed that, that's what they must have done, is they backfilled it all with sand and lifts.
So once you cut and pull the culvert, and that's gonna be a project in itself to get
Right.
that all pulled out and everything, what will be the method of stabilizing the embankments on either side to the entrance of the culvert? Or the entrance of under the
The
bridge,
uphill side.
on either side?
Right. So we've looked at different options, and that's using large rock in order to do that. If not, in order to actually put abutments in concrete structures into the actual water itself,
State,
it causes you to have two things happen. A permit
right.
in order to
Involves
do
the state.
that. And then secondarily, it would require you to dewater that area.
Mhm.
And dewatering that area, as I've outlined in that memo, is $500,000. Because you have to sheet that with metal sheeting, as you saw down at the bay when they did
Mhm.
the boat ramp down
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
And they drove those big sheet
Pilings.
pilings in. In order to do that, if in fact we were doing that, that's the reason why we went with a $250,000 bridge versus a $500 to $1 million bridge,
Mhm.
was because of that sheeting.
Right.
And you can't install that sheeting there because of the electrical lines. So the electrical lines run right beside Loon Cove Road. And those are the primary feed for West Alton and into Guilford. So you can't relocate those lines. And you can't take a 25-foot sheet of steel with a crane and dangle it over those lines and then try to sheet that area. So that's the real issue that confronts us is, first of all, the permitting could take
Oh,
quite some time
Oh.
in order to do that. So the idea is to try to stay out of the water as much as possible.
Mhm.
The rocks that are initially there at that inlet are still there.
right. I saw
Okay,
them.
those are still there.
Mhm.
They didn't go into the bay.
They
The
didn't
only
move.
thing that went into the cove was the sand that was around the pipe. And now the small 4-inch to 6-inch fractured stone that we put in and around the pipe. And not all of that went in. Fair percentage, if not 50% of it did, which is unfortunate for that to happen. So our idea is to bring those refrigerator sized rocks in and keep them up close to the footing as possible, which is right now would be out of the water. We're pretty close to being at the water's edge, and pull those into place in order to make that happen. If we can't do that and we find that it's not something that we can make that happen, we'll look at another alternative, which would be to take in there and set baskets and actually put in metal baskets that you actually fill with stone and have those in place. They make those as retaining walls to have that in
Like-
place. So it's
like
one
crypts.
unit and they're all connected to one another. And I would challenge, the water at that point as to whether or not they could ever move those and put them out into the cove that way. So that's what we're looking at. If the board feels we should go a different route, I can tell you that the contractor has given us a price to remove the bridge deck and basically do what we're talking about doing and to fortify that area as Mr. Wentworth talked about in his his discussion was to armor that, I guess it would be the southerly side of the streamway that
Mhm.
goes through there for the channelway. That catches it because it's not a true alignment from one culvert to the
No.
other. And that's the unfortunate part.
Yeah, they
I
don't.
think the concept was that when they install those two pipes, that why they would not align them, no idea why, but it probably was so that if in fact they did align them, it would have been pointed right at those properties along that shoreline on Farmington Road. And that would cause some problems, I'm sure, that way. So they were in hopes that that little lagoon area would in fact whirl that water, which that's apparently what it does, like a toilet bowl. It whirls the water and then sends it through the pipe.
So you wouldn't be doing any of this until probably July or August, like wouldn't let the water get down, let it get dry as it's gonna be.
That would be
And plus time,
ideal.
That would
and
be
plus,
ideal.
and plus time wise for you guys, if you guys get the rest of the roads back into shape.
And
so
still
that-
deal with the bay situation and.
Yeah, I still got sidewalks going on and.
Yeah.
I
So
get-
you're looking at July or August.
Really want to get to the
Yeah.
lowest point of
Mhm.
water. The difficult part that everybody seems to forget about, because if you ride up behind Mr. Wentworth's property and then you continue up Jesus Valley Road, after you go by his horse barn area and up through there. When any of these two rain events, Jack and I've been up there, and you watch the water come off of Alton Mountain,
Yeah. the snow
come down
and-
through there.
Yeah.
It is quite impressive, if you're a sightseer of water. But people don't realize that the reason why a lot of this water continues to magnify is first of all, the time of year, no vegetation, no leaf cover. And the amount of cutting and clear cutting and development that has happened on that side. And I'll say, Andrew's family's got the Morse area up top, way up top, but those properties down below have, there's some
Lot cutting.
considerably areas that have been cut now. And that really magnifies the velocity of water as it sheds to that common valley of Jesus Valley to come down through. So it's we're fighting against it, even though there's been some representation that this has happened multiple times before and there's never been a problem.
Two questions, if I could, Scott. The risk prior to the time that you folks are able to effect repairs of an additional incident, we likely to have anything worse than what we've already seen?
I mean, I
honestly don't think so.
What?
I didn't think so after December either.
Yeah.
And Monday morning's phone call was not, one that we wanted to hear. So, I mean, I know we want to be optimistic about that. I will tell you that the bridge, because of the way it was constructed, footings, the way they were constructed, because of footings, because of that soil that they were constructed on, they were overbuilt and they were wrapped in geogrid material and fabric. And they were overbuilt and oversized with stone beneath them. So they have not been disturbed or otherwise. They've been washed out almost up to them in a couple spots, but they have not been compromised in any way that way. So, I mean, that's a good part, but they will not, if we continue to have these type of events, and as we all know, nowadays, these rain events are in fact intense. They are not, it's just a global situation that we're having for this area. It's not,
Certainly not a
I've
light
been
rain.
alive
like
for
we-
58 years now, and I've seen more so in the last, 20 years, if not the last 10 years, of more intense weather type situations occurring. So,
Okay, and my second question is, given particularly given the conditions weather-wise that you discussed, I know this is only a judgment call, but in your view, the repairs that we're proposing, how likely are they to be successful?
Well, the
No, there's no guarantees.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guarantee. I've seen in rivers, we've all seen different things happen in rivers where water can move large rocks and large objects. If in fact they are chinked in and locked in, and we hope that they won't continue to travel. Does that not mean that in the long term, there shouldn't be something else looked at here relative to a deflection of sorts? We actually have looked at, whether or not to have rock in there and then try to encase it with concrete. But, the aspects of continuing scour, I think once the pipe is out of there, it actually will give because right now the pipe is constricting
it.
and directing the water to beside the pipe more so than through the pipe because the pipe is lifted so much.
Well, when I saw it, I witnessed the water coming through and the end of that culvert was bent right up. And the water was rushing on either side of it. I mean, it was going to its least point of resistance.
Yeah, and that's what
It's
it's
gonna
going
do
to
that.
do in the future. It's going to continue to, now there's less water in the pipe and
Mhm.
more water underneath the pipe. So that's where the water is going to go. So we really feel that the major thing that needs to happen is to get that
Mhm.
out of there. Now, once again, I've listed a numerous, you can check all of these other communities
Mhm.
where the same design is in other communities. That's,
But you feel as though that doing it in this manner, waiting till the water level is down, obviously, and to remove the culvert and then put in the large boulders will be a step in the right direction to try to
I think
maintain
first
it.
and foremost, we're gonna be working, one of the first things we'll be doing is getting that pipe out of there.
Mhm.
Or at least making all those attempts to get that out of there by our means and by utilizing the contractor.
Mhm.
He's headed to Wakefield to do an emergency bridge over there because of the storm that happened on May 1st. So he's been contracted to go to there by their Board of Selectmen to put a bridge in where two culverts were blown right out. So
Yeah.
in between in the transit, that's going to take him 2 weeks. And during that transit where he moves, our hopes are that we can coordinate that to make sure we know what our capabilities are. And if we need assistance, then he can bring as we call it, the big kahuna, which is a huge monster of a machine. Help us get that out of there. If we can't do it with
That was my next question. Is it capable of doing it with our machine?
Well, the pipe is it's severely rotted. At
So
the
that
water
should come
line,
out.
the entire pipe, with the exception of a small segment in the middle, is completely rotted. And it's not going to take a lot to, we're going to cut
You're gonna make
some
it
of
cut.
those spots in order to try to make things easier. And then we'll have to make some cuts to remove sections of it and do it in pieces versus, just grabbing onto it and pulling it.
Yeah.
I have the top of that pipe on top of 2 of my containers at the highway garage. And it's very solid in that. But the reason why it was red listed was because of these rotten areas in the pipe. The reason why it was pinned back to the footing was so that it wouldn't collapse and then plug the waterway. That's the reason why it was held back. And it was basically, the thought process is that it armors the stream bed.
Mhm.
But the vortex of water had to have gotten underneath the pipe because of that velocity.
And
And it was rotted. The inlet side is more even as
I had to get underneath it
Completely.
someplace right there, so.
So structurally, everything's okay. The bridge
bridge?
itself's fine, everything's
bridge
good.
looks
We
fine.
just gotta work on pulling out that culvert.
Mhm.
When it gets drier.
and then re-armoring,
Hmm.
the stream, the side, it's more so towards the south. Because that, once again, that culvert that comes in from Jesus
Oh yeah,
Valley.
I've seen it myself.
Underneath Route 11 is pointed right straight at that corner. But
Mhm.
those rocks are all still right there. Now, there was one up on the top, by the top of the bridge. It's fallen down in, but it sits at the bottom now.
Mhm.
Not at the top, because it's
Oh,
soil.
just from a wash.
It's from-
Yeah. Show, yeah.
When the contractor came out, was he in agreement of what your thought process was to what to do with it and everything? When he was in agreement with that?
Yeah, I mean, he knows it's quite an undertaking.
Mhm.
That way, but he also knows that if we can avoid taking that bridge deck off,
Yeah.
we want to try to avoid that.
Oh, definitely.
And as he does too,
Mhm.
he wasn't looking to make a dime on anything because he helps towns. That's what he does. He
Yep.
doesn't make huge money on these jobs at all that way. So that's what he does. I mean, if you ask anybody across the state what
Yeah.
he does.
I wouldn't see where there has to be anything done with the deck or anything. I think it's all, like you said, in the culvert area.
Well, after shoveling about 200 yards of 4-inch to 6-inch fractured stone underneath that bridge, I can tell you that it's going to be, it's a little bit of work. So,
Oh, yeah.
we did that, a lot of it manually.
Mhm.
That way we came up with some good ingenuity. Thanks to Jack and the crew there, we came up with some pretty good ideas to make that happen. And we have some good ideas as to how we can place those rocks by block and tackle and chains and pulleys and so on to make that happen. So we need things to settle down and we need
Mhm.
that pipe out of there
Right.
so we can work. We feel that we can try to navigate that.
And is it true that or we have the bridge contractor remove that deck, the actual repair would be far easier, but it would be the same measures taken?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you need a motion or just a consensus of the board or just our sympathy or?
Well, we're in hopes that all this repair work is going to be covered under our FEMA declaration because it was in fact claimed that way. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw this in here before the board for discussion before you go ahead and move on that. From the emergency management side of things, like Scott had said, in December storm, it was declared already. So therefore funding options have already been made available. We've already submitted. And because of the situation where the town took its own measures to try to repair and stabilize the bridge area, that cost of that remediation was already put towards our request for funding. So when the second storm came, and again, no declaration has been put out yet because it's too soon right now. We don't know whether the county in our area has an aggregated amount enough. But I've already made calls to Homeland Security and Emergency Management to the director to notify them that we have damage to the same bridge we did prior. So that makes any concurring damage covered under the original declaration because we took remediation measures, but if it's not substantial enough to withhold another rain event, then we would be eligible for reimbursement for our first efforts and attempts.
And there's
We do this again in a different method. And also on, if it results in the unfortunate dismantling of the deck, that is still something possible that we can bring forward to FEMA as well. So
Okay.
So
these
there's a
steps.
chance some of that could be covered.
What's that?
There's a chance some of that could be covered if in
Yes.
fact it has
Yep.
to be done.
Yeah, I mean, there's no guarantees, obviously,
Yeah.
because we're still in the submission process, but we do qualify for all of these. We did, after the December event, we met with 7 people from FEMA who flew out from I think most of them were from Washington, DC, and then the local emergency management crew came in. We had this whole room filled around the table, and then they went out and they took pictures, and I think some of you saw it on news, unfortunately, some of the news coverage from Channel 9 on that. But just to keep that in the back of your mind is that these attempts, it's not like a one-shot deal. Like we should try to take the most efficient and cost-efficient means first. If it doesn't work, escalate to further methods, and it's not gonna preclude us from any funding.
Okay.
Your determination on funding, however, would come at some point in the future.
Yes, it would. And unfortunately, when we do these things and where they have these declarations, it's not uncommon for us to receive funding a year to a year and a half later.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, I've always tried to, if we can, with these type of situations, I mean, sometimes you end up having to just call a contractor and ask them to see if they'll fix it.
Mhm.
If anybody's tried to call a contractor lately, good luck with that, because everybody is pretty crazy and there's not many people specialized. But anyways, in this situation, I've always tried to, if we can manage it and repair it within house, then we try to do so, because it usually has to be done expeditiously
Sure.
in order to, satisfy getting traffic back, getting people back into their homes, that type of thing. So, I mean, when the incident happened this past Monday, I mean, at 2 a.m., we were on the phone just like it was a snowstorm and calling out our staff and getting them out there and making repairs so that we could get roads open and get things moving in that situation there. So we want to try to do that as well with this situation if we can. Emergency management was made aware in our paperwork that we did submit to them in our write-ups that the potential could be there we would have to remove the deck in order to try to repair that, because we really hadn't dove into how much it was going to take and whether or not the pipe was ever going to settle back down. So, and whether or not it would stay in place. But
And how do you feel how long the process would take to remove that? The pipe itself and then to stabilize the embankment? What do you,
Whole shooting match?
Yeah.
Just cut and
What do you-
pipe.
cut and pipe first? How long do you think that would take?
Cut and pipe, and as long as I could fold it over, 3 days at the most, maybe.
And stabilization of,
Stabilization, that might be a week. That's gonna take some time.
Yeah, you'll be over.
yeah,
It'll be 3 weeks.
Yeah,
You'll be
yeah.
there 3 weeks doing stuff. It's nothing
It's a
to.
lot better than building a temporary road out to Route 11.
Yep.
oh,
You
yeah.
gotta remember that.
Oh, yeah,
We
yeah.
pull the bridge deck.
And like you said, though, you're juggling time
Right.
with other projects and things like that. So
Right.
waiting for that water level to come down a little bit will help to maintain some of the other
Exactly.
projects that's got to be done first.
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
I got confidence in you being able to do it, Jack.
Thank you.
So what do we need?
We need, and you need a motion.
I think it's more of a consensus, but if you want to, I think,
We can talk
let's just
consensus.
let's just do a motion just to be
Okay.
sure. Just because I don't.
So we make a motion to allow the highway department, the DPW, to repair the bridge on Loon Cove and remove the existing culvert that's been causing the problem. Is that what you, yeah,
Is that your motion?
that's my motion, yes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
I'll keep you updated as things go on through the town administrator, and
Mhm.
if you need to have me back before, then certainly we will. And we're trying to do the best that we can.
yeah, I
What
understand
we have, and
with what we have.
yeah, I mean, once again, I blame it on Mother Nature. I know other people want to blame it on all kinds of things, and that's what happens with these situations is usually there's a blame game involved, and it's a different, every situation is different, and we're trying to deal with what we had for cards that were dealt.
Thank you
Thank
both
Thank
very
you,
much.
gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, selectmen reports. Mr. Shea.
Budget committee has been strangely quiet to date. And I got a whole pile of stuff about hazardous waste, which I have to get together with Ryan. Find out what that's all about. And once I do, then I'll know what I'm talking about, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bonapane.
The planning board went well. I did miss the meeting for the Alton Old Home Week Committee. That was my fault. I do apologize to them. And I will be at the next one.
Okay, thank you.
I have nothing at this time.
We just had a ZBA meeting last Thursday, and everything went very well with 2 cases, one being a special exception and one being a variance. That's all I have.
Okay. I got a few things for you tonight. some informational. First of all, I got notification from the fire department today that the fireboat did arrive and was launched today into the water. Fire department's been doing training all day and working to get it into service right away. So
And it
that
has
is
a
here.
I actually thought I saw it.
Yep, I got a picture sent to me of it. It looks very nice.
It does. I
Very
saw
well
it.
done.
too.
Very good.
So the next thing I need to just get a consensus from the board on is you folks had gone down and looked at original sample of the brick sidewalks. My understanding too that the color of the pigment was not satisfaction at that point in time. Another color example was picked. So prior to the meeting, we did get a new sample. Hopefully all the board members got a chance to take a glance at it on their way in the building. Regretfully so, we can't carry it up the stairs and bring it into the meeting room for everybody to look at. Even though everybody, I think here may have seen it, but if they didn't, are welcome to take a look at it. But since the board members had seen it, I would like to get a consensus for the highway department as to whether or not they can move forward with this color.
I, for one, think that the color is good. It looks good. I just hope that the sheen will dull down a little bit with the protective coating that's on it. Other than that, I think the color is spot on.
I think it looks great.
I think-
Scott had said it would wear down, so as that sheen should come off as people walk on it. Should look great.
Yep, I agree.
Mr. Shea?
I like the slightly more brown shade than that, but certainly can live with that, and I'm sure it'll be a big improvement. So I'm okay.
Thank you.
So I'll take it as the consensus of the board is that we move forward.
We move forward.
Okay. The next thing that I wanted to make you aware of on the table when you came in, you saw that there is a memo from the highway Public Works Director regarding the winter maintenance billing. This is an informational packet for the board and especially the two board members that weren't here last year. The reason for this is, if you recall that we had voted, we had several public hearings about winter maintenance of private roads. We discontinued town winter maintenance of private roads, but there was, I don't want to use the word appeal, but there was a reconsideration made for Dan Kelly Drive and Hazlet Lane. And during the motion of the board that time was that we would continue winter maintenance for another year with appropriate billing and revisit it in July to see whether or not that billing had been satisfied. This is informational because this is the billing that's going out. Just so the board members know that this is the amount of time, the hours, the spreadsheet, the total cost, and then in the memos, you will see that the individual letters that are being sent to the property owners with their share per lot cost for winter maintenance. So Hazlet Road is $997.60 and Dan Kelly Road,
3,000.
where did I find it? What was that? I'm sorry.
3,644.
No, I was looking for the per lot.
Oh, per lot.
Does that have-
$144. Does that sound right? For Dan Kelly? That's sand cost.
What was it?
It would,
364.48.
And that was
Apologize.
Hazlet or Dan Kelly?
That's Dan
Dan
Kelly.
Kelly.
Dan Kelly.
And the breakdown is here for what the total is. The total is that 364.88. I was just giving you the individual lot per lot cost that's being billed out per property owner. So, and again, I'm not looking for any action on the board other than to make you, to remind the board members that we're here during it and the new board members to get on to speed so that when July comes around, you know that the billing has gone out. And in July, we will, toward the end of the July, we'll revisit it and see if those invoices have been satisfied and where we stand moving into next year. As I said, that was part of the original motion and acceptance that was done last year. And then the last thing I have for the board is I would like the board to consider making a personnel policy change. What was brought to my attention this year. So the new policy manual that had come out just prior to my taking over this position had a policy in it for probationary employees. So typically probationary employees are not eligible for pay increases their first year or their probationary period, which is completely agreeable. But part of that wording is that it eliminates them from COLA, from any cost of living increase. That is separate and independent of merit. The reason why this obviously is an issue for the specific example that we have employees here currently that we have hired in November or December of the prior year, and employees that were hired in January and February are getting have a 2% pay increase versus the ones that have been here for already 3 or 4 months because they're still on probation and we're not eligible for COLA. Again, I'm only referring to COLA. I understand that, obviously you can't have a merit evaluation based increase on an employee that hasn't been here for a substantial amount of time. But cost of living increases for everybody else, and in the budgets were budgeted across the board for those positions. So I like the board's support in modifying that policy only to eliminate the wording COLA, so that probationary employees would be entitled to only any COLA increase that was awarded to the town employees.
Any
Seems
questions?
reasonable. And particularly given the difficulty in
Being able to get
hiring
help.
people.
In hiring
right
people.
now, you don't want to make it any tougher, I don't think.
I agree,
What-
that's
what-
fair.
And what's the code? I mean, it was only
COLA was 2%.
2%.
So. No, we're definitely not talking about substantial money.
Right.
It's just, like I said, it's the language to the letter in the policy. So in order to do what I'm proposing to the board, I think is the right thing for, given the situation. Because we don't want to bring in new employees at an elevated rate over employee we just hired 2 or 3 months ago, all because of timing. Because that 2% automatically goes into effect on the pay scale January 1. So anybody just shy of January 1 is going to lose out on that under
Lose
the
out on
current,
that- on
under
that
current policy.
2%.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with it.
No. I don't
No,
have a
no problem at all.
Just a consensus. Good for
No,
you.
I need a vote for a policy change. Just to eliminate COLA from the probationary periods policy.
I make a motion to eliminate COLA from the probationary policy.
Second,
Second.
And is that wording okay?
What's that?
Say.
Is that the
okay.
wording you needed?
Yes, so the probationary section of the policy, like I said, it states altogether that a probationary employee will not be entitled to any pay increases whatsoever. We had originally modified it last year, the same subparagraph, because it didn't include reclassifications. I think those board members that weren't here last year, we remember that we did a lot of reclassifying. And we had to adjust that policy language because it wouldn't have allowed any probationary period employee to receive an increase under a reclassification. So we did that. This is the same scenario, only with COLA.
So I did word it right.
Yeah,
That wording.
just removing COLA from that subparagraph.
I second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes. This would be for,
It's April 3rd.
see if I can find it here. There it is.
Here's one more page.
One more page. There it is.
Oh, one more.
There it
There
is.
you go.
There it is. Approval of the minutes for the April 3rd, 2023 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes for the Board of Selectmen meeting on April 3rd of 2023 as posted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Consent agenda. Would you like me to?
No, we don't need that. No, it's all listed on that consent agenda. Yeah.
Do a motion to approve the consent agenda. Should have it. This one right here.
There's,
It says consent right on the upper right-hand corner. It was on, it's on the table. Should be on the table.
So I get digging that book all night and doing.
No, it should be right there. It'll say consent on the upper right-hand corner.
Oh, all right. Okay, I got you. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. We don't have any appointments this evening. Is there
No,
anything else
there are
on
no-
consent?
actually, I don't,
Was there something else?
I think there might have been some items.
Okay.
Didn't get.
Oh, I see. Okay, there's another item here on the consent agenda that needs to be approved.
Apologies, these are the, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. This was, these were the assessing items that were supposed to be on the table as well.
Okay.
For the board's consideration.
Did everybody see their copy?
Everything here looks like pretty routine, straightforward.
Do we have a
Yes.
motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the additional items on the consent agenda dated May 9th, 2023.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we have no appointments. Public input.
Ruben Wentworth again. It's not that I was looking to put blame anywhere. But like I said, since 1971, I've lived there. Most of that water comes off Cedar Mountain and Mount Major. Some of it, yes, comes off from Alton Mountain. Very little though, because it mostly comes down Rand Hill Road from Alton Mountain over the streams there. There is a beaver dam up there at the end of the road that does act as a tributary to some of the Alton Mountain. There is not much development on Cedar Mountain or Mount Major. The problem is we'd had over a week of rain, that the ground was saturated still from snow runoff. It'd been raining off, and then since 7:30 that night, Sunday night, it started pouring rain on saturated ground. Within a matter of moments and hours, we had 4 inches of rain. No brook would ever accept that anyways on a normal level, coming off a mountain. So it's just not that. And Mr. Scott was right. That was a vortex, but the vortex was created in effectively when we left the culvert cut and we didn't cut it back to the slope of the land. Because when I first went down there and brought this up, when the bridge was first done, that left-hand side of that culvert would move in 2 to 3 feet. By that water that came out of there, that's what created that vast vortex to undermine that culvert. If that had been taken care of and sloped down, and I hope in the future we look at this, that vortex and that's problem we have now would probably not have been created. Because we've had water that high before, we've had it that far. So do we get more of them now than what we used to? Yes. But normally once, twice a year, that pond will flow like that on a good heavy fall or spring from runoff. So I wasn't looking to put blame, but I'm just asking, can we get it corrected? And hopefully we can sit back, look at it, make sure this is the right procedure. I hope the culvert comes out nice. I hope it takes care of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Mr.
Ruben.
Wentworth. Any other input? Okay. At this time, I make a motion to enter into non-public. A meeting per RSA 91-A:3:11. Section A. Section A. Sorry.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it's-
Thanks, guys.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We,
I'm
gotta do a
sorry,
roll call.
roll call. Mr. Shea? Yes or no? Yeah.
Yes.